Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. McMahon, I very much appreciate you being here. I hope one day we'll have a Republican administration, but I hope never to be sitting in the chair where you are sitting. So I'm grateful to you for doing that and your team that came with you. $600, $700 billion questions, pretty heady material. I remember we had a former IRS commissioner sitting in that chair who said he was absolutely satisfied that a very thorough examination had been done, and turned out he never even picked up the phone to call to find out if a thorough examination had been done. I know that's not the case with you today, but you've said that several times. The working group did a very thorough analysis. You've said several times, I'm satisfied. You've said several times, I assure you that we had extensive discussions, and yet we have so very little paperwork to support all of that. I've reviewed the in-camera materials that we've had a chance to see, but can you tell me, because this is so important to my folks back home. They do read statutes that get published as plain language. If it says state exchange, they think it means state exchange. Do you remember when these conversations were beginning? Do you remember this being an important issue that this working group, that this team was trying to sort out because the language of the statute was so plain?
Congressman, I do remember when the issue was first identified, largely because I was the one who first became aware that some individuals were suggesting as a possible interpretation of the relevant provisions that the credit would not be available in a Federal exchange. I read an article.
So the working group was already going on. The analysis had already begun. This thing was already robustly established and producing, and then you heard that this might be an alternative interpretation. Is that kind of the timeline?
Well, this was at the time that we identified this issue. We were also in the early stages of the process, I would say, and were identifying a number of issues that would need to be resolved.
Do you remember any discussion that said, golly, if we don't resolve this in the affirmative, our entire vision of how these subsidies are going to be deployed across the country is going to come unraveled? I mean, again, this is a huge decision. If you decide the other direction, folks in my home state of Georgia aren't going to receive any subsidies whatsoever. So that the import cannot be overstated. Do you remember any discussion that said, if we don't get this right, we are going to sweep out the foundation on which the President's health care plan is established?
Congressman, I would say that we recognized that the interpretation that the credits would not be available on Federal exchanges was inconsistent with our understanding.
I'm asking a very different question, and again, I know you have a staff of professionals that you work with, but this is not an ordinary issue. This isn't a 501c4 issue. This isn't a can I claim a homeowner tax credit issue. This is the President's landmark social agenda program going to be held to the statutory standard under which it was passed by Congress and signed by the President. I can't imagine that this discussion was held at IRS headquarters, throughout the Treasury Department, and there was not some discussion of, we've got to get this done. Is it your recollection that that was never a topic of conversation, that no one ever felt that sense of urgency, that we've got to get this right because otherwise the President's social agenda comes unraveled?
Congressman, we analyzed this question.
I understand that, and you've said that several times, but I'm asking a question that no one else has asked, and so I'm expecting the answer to be something different than what you've given to everyone else, and that is, do you recall that topic ever coming up in all of these extensive discussions that you've had, the thorough analysis that you had, all of those conversations that satisfied you that this was done properly? And if the answer is no, that's okay. I just wanted to know.
Congressman, as I've said, we appreciated the fact that the interpretation that you're suggesting would have been very inconsistent.
I don't think you're going to answer my question, Ms. McMahon, and that frustrates me. Could I get the slide up here? Because I've just got 4 sentences that I'd like to put there on the board. This is the analysis that I saw in the pre-proposed regulatory language. 4 sentences up here in this analysis. My friends at CRS, who are not burdened with the actual responsibility of implementing this, produced 10 pages for us of pros and cons, helping us work through what the issues were, what the patterns were, what the legal doctrine was. 4 sentences is what I've gotten from you all, from the very extensive discussion groups, the very thorough analysis. And it says in sentence 4, the phrase established by a state may be interpreted to refer to an exchange established to operate in a state. Can I just ask you, what are the other exchanges? We're going to interpret the phrase established by a state to mean these can do the ones that are established to operate in a state. What are the other exchanges that this phrase doesn't refer to? Established by a state may be interpreted to refer to an exchange established to operate in a state. What are the other exchanges that we're concerned about? We're going to interpret this one to mean these exchanges. What are the other exchanges that it could be interpreted to mean?
Well, Congressman, in addition to the exchanges established by a state, there are obviously federally facilitated exchanges.
The different exchanges, the ones that aren't these, the ones that are the other ones. I mean, because I think that's exactly what my folks back home think, that you're exactly right. They're the ones that are established by a state, and then there are all the other ones that aren't established by a state, which is why we had this language in here. Mr. Chairman, there's no mention of this issue in the proposed reg clearance package, and I just find it unbelievable that as a freshman member on this committee, a first-year member of this committee, I can't see the documentation that was produced for folks that say it was an extensive discussion. It was a very thorough analysis. I get 4 sentences and some in-camera documents for something that is the largest single dollar value issue that this Congress and this nation are going to consider in 2013. I thank the Chairman.